and go here. She was like, "Hi, Johnny." She bought me a drink, but she didn't invite me on the cruise. And then
Good morning, everyone. My name is Jamie Frazier. My pronouns are she, her, and I am honored to welcome you to the Ethical Society of St. Louis. While the outside world is so cold today, we hope you find warmth and welcome here. We are an ethical humanist community where people come together to explore big questions, live with intention, and work toward a more just and compassionate world. This season, our platform series explores how we seek and find truth, not as something fixed or abstract, but as something we pursue together through reason, evidence, and experience. Ethical humanism encourages us to look beyond what is happening and investigate how it came to be. Today's platform asks us to examine a difficult truth about injustice. It rarely arrives all at once. More often, it advances quietly through indifference, through normalization, through the slow erosion of fairness that begins somewhere else and eventually touches everything. Our speaker this morning, Christi Griffin, brings decades of experience confronting those realities firsthand. As founder and president of the Ethics Project, Christi has worked at the intersection of law, ethics, and accountability, addressing wrongful prosecutions, systemic inequities, and the profound human cost when justice systems fail. In her talk today, Christi challenges us to seek truth, not only in data or doctrine, but in consequence. She reflects on how apathy toward injustice, especially when it affects others, carries costs that do not stay contained. What begins with targeted harm can spread into every corner of civic life, healthcare, education, livelihoods, and personal freedoms. She asks us to recognize the warning signs of authoritarian drift and to consider what courage looks like before silence becomes complicity. Seeking truth is not a passive act. It requires attention, honesty, and a willingness to respond. As we begin today, I invite you to take a moment to silence your devices so we can be fully present with one another. Thank you. All right, and we're thrilled to welcome Amir Arkins and Eileen Gannon, two internationally respected Irish musicians known for their breathtaking blend of harp, voice, and fiddle. Together, they bring haunting melodies, traditional songs, and joyful dance tunes rooted in Irish tradition and shared with warmth and brilliance. Please welcome Amir and Eileen as they start us off with a set of jigs. Thank you, Emer and Eileen. That was a great way to kick us off this morning. Each week, we read our youth education core values as a way to bring us together and remind us of our shared commitments. This morning, our core values reader is Calvin Jones. Please join me in welcoming them to the stage.
Every person is important and unique. Every person deserves to be treated fairly and kindly. I can learn from everyone. I am part of this earth, I cherish it and all the life upon it. I am a member of the world community, which depends on the cooperation of all people for peace and justice. I can learn from the past to build for the future. I am free to question. I am free to choose what I believe. I accept responsibility for my choices and actions. I strive to live my values.
Thank you, Calvin. These values remind us that community members of all ages help make this place what it is. This morning, our youth will be focusing on their own interests and curiosities and how those connect them to the wider community. They will be reflecting on what they care about, what they want to learn more deeply, and how the adults around them can be partners in that learning. Together, they will begin imagining intergenerational connections that honor their questions, passions, and growing sense of agency, reinforcing that seeking truth is something we do best in relationship with others. Thank you all for joining us today, and we'll see you again after platform. Our next segment, Stories of Ourselves, provides an opportunity to connect with one another more deeply by sharing our stories. This morning, we will hear from member and my friend, Shantae Hannah. Please join me in welcoming Shantae.
Buenos dias. So, I signed up for opening words before the new format of Stories of Ourselves, so I will be blending the two. So, a little something about me. The biggest story of myself right now is that I am preparing to move out of the country and live in a different country. I'm going to Colombia, and I'm sure that it's going to be a great adventure, a lot of happy times, but the reason that I am leaving the country is not so happy. I don't believe that it is a safe space, especially for people who look like me right now. And so I want to share an example of one of the reasons why I believe that it is not so safe right now. So back on October 12th, we had a speaker that was the director of the Slavery Project at Washington University, Jeff Ward, and he spoke about the community remembrance of the history of lynching and the memorials that are going up for that. I was hoping that he would mention that just a month before there was a lynching. The way he presented it like it was something of the past that doesn't happen anymore. And I believe that it's really important to, to know that it is still happening. And so about a month before we had that, that presentation from him, a 21-year-old student at Delta State University in Mississippi, his name was Demartravion Reed, he was found hanging at his university at Delta State. And so, like I said, I think it's very important to talk about these things and not sweep it under the rug and not keep it quiet. These things are still happening. And I think it is time, that we, don't keep polite. It's some of those things are thought of as impolite to talk about or uncomfortable to talk about. I think it's very important to keep talking about these things so that they are not forgotten or not noticed at all. It is time to rock the boat. It is that time. And so I wanted to also say that, lynching, when we think of lynching, we think of ropes and we think of ropes, but it's not always. Lynching isn't always ropes. It's also any killing that is done not by law, by a mob. And so some of the killings and murders that have happened recently, they may be thought of as lynchings as well. And I'm thinking of the man who was killed by an off-duty officer. His name was Keith Porter. And that was just a few days before Renee Nicole Good was murdered by an officer as well. But I don't know, some of you may not have heard of Keith Porter. He was a black man, and those that are white that are killed, murdered, may get more coverage, like Renee. She got 24/7 coverage, basically, because she was a white woman. So I'm going to borrow from our main theme today, and I'm going to say, and then they came for me. Because that and then part of that quote is yesterday. It's gone, it's over. The part that we need to focus on is came for me, because that time is now. Gracias.
Thank you for sharing, Shantae. Hope we can all take that to heart, and again, thank you. All right, next, let's welcome Amira and Eileen for their second musical selection, In the Bleak Midwinter.
In the bleak midwinter, stormy winds made moan. Earth stood hard as iron, water like a stone. Snow was falling, snow on snow, snow on snow on snow. In the bleak midwinter, long, long ago. What can I give him, poor as I am? If I were a shepherd, I would bring a lamb. If I were a wise man, I would do my part. What can I give him? Give him my In the bleak midwinter, stormy winds made moan. Earth stood hard as iron, water like a stone. Snow was falling, snow on snow, snow on snow on snow. In the bleak midwinter, long, long ago. In the bleak midwinter, long, long ago.
Thank you so much. That was really lovely. Before our main address, let's pause and reset our attention. In order to seek truth in a world full of information, opinions, and urgency, ethical humanism encourages us to listen carefully, Notice our reactions and stay present, especially when a topic or conversation is challenging or complex, as our conversation is today. I invite you to take a silent minute to settle into your seat, relax your shoulders, and bring your attention to your breath. Allow your body to release tension and your mind to set aside what can wait as we prepare ourselves to listen clearly and thoughtfully. We're delighted to welcome Christi Griffin, founder and president of the Ethics Project, a nationally recognized nonprofit working to reduce wrongful convictions by promoting ethical practices across the justice system. A longtime legal leader and civil advocate, Christi's work has earned honors, including the Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. Drum Major for Justice Award. She brings us a powerful ethical lens on accountability, dignity, and justice. Please welcome Christi Griffin.
Good morning. Well, thank you for being here, and thank you for having me here today. Robin, thank you for inviting me to speak. To Claire and everyone who has orchestrated this day, and to Jane for inviting me to display my art. Thank you very much. And for my friends who have come, thank you. I appreciate you being here. It's been a long road to this day. The first invitation being derailed years ago and now referenced twice in my third book, False Judgment, a memoir of injustice, judgment, and rebirth, the telling of the injustice and judgment I've experienced. Yes, I'm just flagrantly being promotional right now. But honestly, I'm honored to be here, especially honored to follow Gerald Early and James Croft, and my replacement in 2014, my childhood neighbor, law professor Ajua Ayatoro. Before delving into the serious topic of my talk, I'd like to start a little lighter. Several years ago, I applied to Yale Divinity School. And while in Atlanta for Andrew Young's 90th birthday celebration, I got a call from the associate dean. The call, of course, boosted my excitement. And at his gala later that night, I wished Andy happy birthday, told him about the call, and asked him to pray that I get in. And just as I was walking away, he grabbed my arm, pulled me back, and said, "If you don't get in," my heart leapt. This is it. My mind raced. If there was a no because I declined their PhD program, this former mayor, congressman, U.S. ambassador, pastor, and top aide to Dr. King surely knew someone at Yale who could get me in. And then he finished his sentence. They didn't let me in either. Heart dropped. I tell that joke, a true story, not only because I find it hilarious, but because that weekend of celebration, recognizing the decades of work, risk, and sacrifices that Andrew Young, Dr. King, and many others assumed in the face of death and racism, encapsulates my message. And then they came for me. And then they came for me is from the writing of Martin Niemöller, a prominent Lutheran pastor in Germany in the 1920s and 30s, who sympathized with many Nazi ideas and supported radical right-wing political movements until. First, they came for the socialists, and I did not speak because I was not a socialist. Then they came for the trade unionist. I did not speak because I was not a trade unionist. Then they came for the Jews, and I did not speak because I was not a Jew. Then they came for me, and there was no one left to speak up for me. The hypocrisy in this country is palpable. Cognitive dissonance has allowed man's inhumanity to man to run rampant. Since 1931, we've stood in reverence, hands over our hearts, singing the Star-Spangled Banner. And with a glorious crescendo at the end, we bellowed out the words of Francis Scott Key's, "The land of the free, the home of the brave." We've sung those words even though our original inhabitants were restricted to reservations. Jews and blacks were told they were not welcome. Gay men and women were told who they could and could not love. And in modern times, millions are held in prisons as their children waited home, locked in the torment of absent parents, all while brave, hooded or masked men terrorize Black communities. The Klan back then, ICE agents today. Callously, the words themselves erase the reality of many who have seldom known freedom, seldom have encountered the brave. Like Jews during the Holocaust, when they were confined to stacks of wooden slabs, we are once again witnessing barbarity. Terrible things are happening outside. At any time of night and day, poor, helpless people are being dragged out of their homes. Families are torn apart. Men, women, and children are separated. Children come home from school to find that their parents have disappeared. Everyone is scared. Anne Frank, Nazi Germany, 1943. And here we are today, history repeating itself, families being torn apart and children and adults alike traumatized. But unlike the detainment and violations in the 1940s, the targets today are no longer limited to Black and Jews. They're anyone who opposed this regime. We learned this painful truth when Renee Good, a white woman heralded as the best of the best, was gunned down by an ICE agent while standing up for others. No longer are people traded on courthouse steps. Today, they're traded on the stock exchange. The more bodies they imprison, guilty or not, the higher the stock prices rise. This, while a convicted felon sits in our White House, and corporations are given slaps on the wrist for their crimes. Indeed, the National Rifle Association was founded on the fraudulent use, or was found guilty of the fraudulent use of donor funds. Yet, its nonprofit status is still intact as a social welfare organization. Their members still supporting them. As we watch a fascist regime rise, while nationalism and supremacy once again rears its ugly head, we are watching another path of destruction take form. Deportation was once a claim of ridding our communities of criminal immigrants, but deportations quickly evolved into a roundup of innocent children and hardworking adults. Meanwhile, former Florida Governor Rick Scott found guilty of 17 counts of fraud against our government, sits in the U.S. Senate today. Our silence is not only deafening, it is astounding. Injustice is not new in America. It has simply taken on new forms. And now I was given instructions on this. Hopefully I will do this correctly. Maybe not. Okay. From the first arrival of Europeans, land was violently stolen from its indigenous people. That disregard of the rights of others eventually evolved into the desecration of a sacred mountain. I am going to skip the slides. Okay, there we go, thank you. And now I've lost my place. And millions of indigenous children taken from their families, sent to state and church-run boarding schools. Oh, again. There we go. Thank you. Africans were stolen from their native land, sold on the open market, and forced into brutal slavery. Yet, our tendency as a nation of Christian people have been to bury our heads and ignore the atrocities until it reaches our steps. Most of the images being displayed here today have been blurred. Often, there are those offended by seeing images of what others have actually lived. Books are banned from schools to protect the minds of certain children, while children of color live the very trauma from which others are being shielded from even seeing. History is being whitewashed, an implicit admission of guilt of America's dark past. As human beings, we're so desperate to hold on to that which is known, routine, and safe that we are willing to accept as inevitable those things that threaten our very existence. We are inundated with systems that teach us and mold us to play the role in systems of oppression. Slowly, inevitably, the acceptance of inhumanity towards others removes our ability to reject, even question those things we know cause harm to others. In a TV special years ago, researchers set out to prove that people are less likely to help others when in a group. Scenarios were created to test the hypothesis. Participants entered the test room passing a painter on a tall ladder. Later, they heard the loud crashing of his paint can and him falling to the floor. Those hearing him fall, as a group, looked at each other with concern, but did nothing. Using the same sounds and scenario with one person in the room, the person immediately ran to his aid. And so too, we follow the pattern throughout history. If our neighbors don't shout fire, even as flames leap from the windows of a burning home, chances are neither will we. We have seen time and again in a country where 70% of its citizens claim affiliation with a religious denomination, millions stand in a collective silence while the powers that be engage in unending forms of injustice. We stood silent as human beings toiled under relentless heat and unconscionable conditions. Few protested when ads announced that Jews and Negroes need not apply. when promotions were few for blacks, pay was less, land confiscated by government force and lost through deceptive practices. To this day, African Americans have 6 times less wealth than our white counterparts, and still few, if any, rise to demand that our black brothers and sisters be made whole. We stood silent while thousands were whipped and lynched, silent while Jews were torn from their homes, taken to camps, and exterminated. We watched from afar and prayed in our churches, prayed for new cars, for healing, and for more and more wealth. But the church itself remained silent. We tossed coins into the collection plates, but made no demands that the church speak up. And even though every ounce of wealth in this country is inextricably tied to the free and forced labor of enslaved Africans, few voices rise today to demand reparations for their descendants. We were silent when opioids were given to Chinese immigrants, their laundries destroyed, and their labor used to build railroads that served this country. Silent when Japanese Americans were interred. We were silent when Black Wall Street and Rosewood were bombed. Successful Black communities torched and burned while those who built them were violently forced to leave. We were silent when a block in a Black Philadelphia neighborhood was bombed by our government because those who resisted racist practices refused to surrender. We were silent when even the children who were inside were killed as well. We were silent when police raided Stonewall, a refuge for the gay community in New York. Silent when the National Guard used military force on college campuses in protest of the Vietnam War. Silent when 4 students were killed in a 13-second barrage of gunfire. Students demanding peace, violence was the response. While many have actively resisted mass incarceration in this country, the largest number of incarcerations of any country in the world, the lasting impact in this profit-generating system has permanently altered the lives of tens of millions of children, destroyed families, and entire communities. The indirect impact of mass incarceration can be seen in classrooms where children are routinely plied with psychotropic drugs to control the outcome of trauma and depression. Classrooms have become bedlams of disruptions, distrust, and disrespect, and too often verbal and physical violence. Hidden behind classroom walls, the community stands by in silence, speaking up only to demand justice for their victims. While those in power profit, the rest of us stand silently behind locked doors, barred windows, and alarm systems, and walls of fear. Inner city residents now cower in their own homes, while guns that are filtered into impoverished neighborhoods, you send bullets crashing through. Even in our homes, there is no escape from the turmoil and disruption government forces and corporate interests have intentionally designed. Our silence has allowed the United States to plummet in world ranking in education, while skyrocketing in the number of its citizens it incarcerates. Lured by the same trite campaign slogan, tough on crime, we've elected politicians who have increased spending on prisons to as much as $200 billion a year when related costs are factored in, while increases in spending on education and declining school buildings lag. Though Woodstock was a haven of drugs used by many of the nearly 500,000 people who attended, there were few arrests for drugs. When opioids became a problem in the white community in this millennium, incarceration wasn't the response for them. Lavish treatment centers began to rise. It was prisons for blacks who used drugs to self-medicate after years of oppression, country club settings for whites who did the same. Justice is what justice does. When a tornado tore through St. Louis last May, it uprooted trees on Wydown, but largely spared the stately homes. But for many of the domestic workers, women who cleaned those homes for decades, they saw their own homes reduced to rubble. Grossly underpaid, without Social Security that their employers failed to pay, their aging homes never stood a chance. And the beat goes on. Our parents and grandparents did not send Jews to Auschwitz. They were thousands of miles away, but their silence. It was the silence of neighbors, of institutions, even of the church. It was their failure to intervene, to do something. Many have expressed surprise at where we find ourselves today. They never imagined that we would witness what's happening. But let's be honest. Can we resume the slides for me, please? Thank you. We accepted the massacre of indigenous people. We accepted the theft of and brutal enslavement of human beings, the internment of Japanese, the destruction of Chinese laundries, the bombings of black communities. We were silent through the lynchings, children sprayed with fire hoses, gay clubs raided, and its patrons arrested. In the past, it was slave traders and religious zealots taking children from homes of indigenous people. We accepted their mistreatment while they were forced to learn new ways. It should not be a surprise where we are today. It's a variation of an old theme. Injustice and violence is rooted in silence, cultivated where our heads are turned, and flourishes in the soil of indifference. Millions marched during the recent No Kings March. Hundreds of thousands of women showed up to Washington in pink pussycat ears to protest the first regime. Yet, few of those women showed up in solidarity with African American brothers and sisters who have borne the weight of injustice for decades. The Black Lives Matter protest in DC that same weekend was mostly Black lives. Many were duped into believing that blacks and people of color were the sole beneficiaries of DEI. But when an executive order cut DEI jobs and benefits last year, it was quickly learned that white women have always been the main beneficiaries of DEI, and through them, white men. We are all in this together. There will never be a resolution of injustice in one arena as long as injustice is allowed to fester in another. As Dr. Martin Luther King said, injustice anywhere is a threat to justice everywhere. Like the flap of a wing of butterflies in one continent that sets off a chain of reactions across the world, injustice is a disease of the soul of this country that infects the entire body. There are those who feel empowered to march, to carry signs, to repeat the incantations of injustice shared from megaphones. No justice, no peace. And it's not simply a protest chant. It is a truth rooted in the very nature of human interaction. It's not about our comfort, not about what's easy. Resistance is never easy. Neither is living in a country that's in a free fall. As Frederick Douglass warned us, power concedes nothing without a demand, not even when that power is crumbling. There are those who will call, email, or write letters to Congress, those who will organize and lead, those who will make posters that loudly proclaim disdain for our current state of affairs. Others will hold community meetings, and yet others will help get out the vote. All of us can boycott a news corporation that made a tax-deductible $16 million donation to a political candidate, and then after an election rigged by a technology genius, proceeded to cut people of color from their lineup and advance the agenda of the very plaintiff they paid. Indeed, whatever we do, the simplest, if not the most effective thing we can do it together. Introduce ourselves to a neighbor, bury old hatchets, build trust, pray together, because prayer plus action changes things. Every generation has a doorway like the one you see, or might see, on the screen. The question has never been whether the door exists. The question is whether we have the courage to walk through it together. There is power in numbers. Minnesota is demonstrating that as we speak. Before we find our sons called to fight another war, before there's another 9/11, before our children are stopped, searched, and detained, or before our country stands in ruins as Germany once did, let's do something and do it together. Because when the images fade, when names are forgotten, when history is softened into palatable lies, it's then that they'll come for us. Today it's immigrants, tomorrow. Yesterday it was slave traders and bombings, today it's ICE. My purpose today is not to tell you what to do. It's to ask you to do something, to challenge the notion that anyone can be deemed illegal in a land that was stolen and built on the backs of stolen people, or that legal status supersedes human dignity. So as I close out my words, I want to say something that may feel difficult in this moment. I'm asking you to rise above the hate, because the answer to moments like this is to wield the most powerful weapon there is, to love thy enemy. Love is not silence disguised in civility. Love is not passive. It's what refuses to dehumanize them, even as they dehumanize others. Love is what tells the truth without surrendering the soul. Love is what allows us to say, this is wrong. In our rightful condemnation of the resurging hate we're witnessing, we can't fall into the same trap as those we condemn. While they wield words of hate, our call is to love. Not only to love immigrants, not only to love the Renee Goods and Anthony Porters of the world, but to love those whose empty souls have been hardened, whose self-images have been marred by life, for those who were taught that they are somehow superior to others. Loving them is the answer. Love doesn't excuse cruelty. It doesn't ignore harm. It refuses to surrender our humanity while we confront theirs. Hate in exchange for hate merely amplifies hate. If we are not resisting injustice, we become a part of it. Love in this moment is our strength. It's discipline and courage, and the only force that has ever stopped what history is trying to repeat. Every generation stands in a doorway of change, an opportunity to stand up for what's right. Because as we have seen throughout history, if we don't speak up for others, there will be no one left to speak for us. Thank you.
Thank you so much for that powerful message that you brought to each of us today. Very grateful to have you here. At the Ethical Society of St. Louis, our mission shapes everything we do, from Sunday platforms to youth programs, music, service, and partnerships in the wider community. Our work is sustained through the generosity of our members and friends. Today's collection supports the ongoing life of the Ethical Society and allows us to continue offering programs, gatherings, and opportunities to live our values together. Most members of our community support the Ethical Society through regular monthly giving or an annual gift. For those who'd like to contribute in person today, the collection baskets and the QR code on the screen are simple ways to participate. Every contribution helps bring our mission to life. If you'd like to stay connected to our community, we invite you to subscribe to our weekly newsletter for updates on upcoming programs, service opportunities, and ways to get involved. Now, let's take a moment to hear some announcements about what's coming up in the life of our community. Please join the Board of Trustees for Banter with the Board after platform at Coffee Hour in the Becker Room on January 25th, which is next Sunday. Also, thank you to the 40 volunteers who showed up today to pack 1,000 free emergency contraception kits in partnership with Beacon Reproductive Health Network. We appreciate your service and commitment to this project. And then at the Curian Dinners are small quarterly dinner groups for Ethical Society members who want to build deeper connections over good food. Groups rotate hosting in one another's homes and are matched by schedule and dietary needs. If you are an Ethical Society member and would like to participate, please sign up by January 30th using the link in the weekly email newsletter. All right, and then we have a message from the Stewardship Committee. It is once again that time of year, the start of the annual pledge campaign. The pledge information was mailed this past Wednesday, so if you haven't received it yet, expect it this week. This year, the campaign has been shortened to 7 weeks. It will include opening words on January 25th, Pledge Sunday on February 8th, and the finale, the Appreciation Celebration Luncheon on March 1st. Thank you in advance for your consideration and the pledge contribution you are able to make. And then there's a reminder about the matching fund. There is still time to make a commitment to the matching fund for the 2026 pledge campaign. All pledge increases will be matched, and the money from the matching fund will go towards the compensation of a new leader. If you are interested in becoming a matching fund donor, email the Stewardship Committee at stewardship@ethicalstl.org. The Stewardship Committee extends our deepest appreciation to the 16 donors who have committed $43,700 to the fund so far. So, thank you. All right, and for our third and final musical selection, please welcome Amir and Eileen back for their final musical selection, which is a set of reels. Thank you so much. And also thank you to Christi Griffin for inviting us to pay attention to how injustice takes root and what it means to seek out truth when it is beneath the surface. Thank you to our musicians for bringing our spirits up, and to Shantae for sharing from her heart, and to all who helped create a space for listening and reflection this morning. As we continue our Seeking Truth series, we remember that truth is not only something we discover, but something we protect. It depends on our willingness to notice what is happening around us, to question what we are asked to accept, and to care, even when it feels easier not to. After platform, we invite you to join us downstairs for coffee and conversation. You'll find opportunities to connect more deeply with one another and with the work of this community. As you go into the week ahead and honor the life of Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. tomorrow, may you stay attentive to the truths that challenge you, and the truths that call you to courage, and the truths you help sustain through care and action. Thank you.
Maybe a dumb question. What inspired you guys to take such an English tune as in the Liquid Winter and Irishify it? Because it's one of my favorite songs, but it
She
is.
sings it in one of her Christmas show tours that she does.
Okay. It makes sense. It's a great song.
It's just so
and
nice,
it was perfect. I mean, it was awesome. But it's so freaking English that was surprising in the context. That's all.
We like to Irishify all kinds of things.
I know the feeling. I was just asking if you didn't think that.